Great one. Greetings. Dave Rubenstein here, Editor-in-Chief of SD Times, and I'd like to welcome you to one of our SD Times live webinars with our good friends at ConnectALL. Today's topic is 6 ways how tool integration dramatically improves test management processes and Q&A. QA, not Q&A. Anyway, so before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. We're going to be recording this as always, and it'll be available within the next day on sdtimes.com. And the second thing is we're going to be taking questions live from the attendees as we go. So if you have one, just put it in the public part of the chat so we can all see it, and we will get to as many as time allows. So it's chock full of information today, so I want to just turn it right away to Jonathan McGowan. He's the Principal Solution Architect at ConnectALL, and he's going to take you through the presentation. Jonathan?
All right, thanks, Dave.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and take it from here. And joined as well by Lance. Lance from ConnectALL as well.
Who needs no introduction, but
yeah, Lance needs no introduction. I assume, but you know, just for
right.
I think he was expecting a longer intro so he could
prepare.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have a
changing some things. Hold on, give me just a second. All right.
Okay, fellas, take it away.
All right, thank you. So yeah, thank you everybody again for joining us. As Dave said, my name is Jonathan McGowan from ConnectALL, and I'll walk you through a little bit and talk a little bit about 6 ways that value stream tool integration can improve your software quality. So what we'll do is first just talk about how testing is everywhere. You know, if you're familiar with QA processes, you know there's a million ways to test something and 1,000,001 tools to do it, right? So from unit testing through the development process, regression testing to make sure you didn't break anything, then formalized manual tests and automated tests with other tools, whether you're doing code scans, security scans, and then all that has to fit into compliance, right? You have to trace it all and know which piece affected this and that, whatever. So it's a very complex area, right? There's a lot going on here in the testing realm, and different teams doing different kinds of tests. You know, your developers doing those unit tests, your QA team doing manual, automated, and regression, and then your security folks doing all that. And they've all each got their own little places that they're doing all of that in. So,
well, you know, Jonathan, the other thing is going back to that slide really quick to add some comment is that picture there shows that over the last, I don't know, 20 years, 10 years, there's been an explosion of different quality tools, scanning tools. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, and they all kind of names. The good ones are named after vegetables, I think. But, you know, there are so many tools that do quality scanning and ensure, you know, certain things that it's really difficult to really keep a handle of all those things that are out there around that and the different types of tests and scan. I think it's even going to get worse with more testing.
Yeah, I think there are probably more testing tools than there are programming languages, right?
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a problem, of course, because everybody is doing their own thing. You know, everybody's doing their own thing in all their different tools, and you know, ultimately that ends up being expensive because you're spending, of course, a lot of money on tools, but you also have a lot of money in teams, a lot of money spent just checking things, right? And I mean, what are you really doing with testing? You know, you've written code, and now we're going to go test to make sure that it works. Okay. That delays everything, right? Now I know, you know, yes, I'll say testing is important, right? So don't get me wrong there. It is important to test, of course, and that's why we do it. We want to make sure that we're delivering quality, right? But at the end of the day, what is it? It's what value is it bringing there, right?
You want me to save you an
I'm getting to that. The non-value added work, right?
Testing is a non-value-added
that's
activity.
right. So we're just going behind people and making sure that their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed, basically. Not bringing additional value, just checking behind them.
You always got to say the but necessary. Non-value-added, but necessary.
But necessary. That's right.
Yep.
Because of course quality is still important. So, but ultimately, like I said, that always delays a process. You've taken the time to write the code, but then you have to go through this whole suite of things before it actually gets delivered. And we've tried to improve that with things like automated testing to take over some of the manual efforts. But still, there's a lot of time that's invested into QA. Especially, and then your product gets bigger and bigger, and you have more and more regression to do each time. So, it's an ever growing list of things that have to be done. Anyway, so how do we solve this problem? What are winning companies doing to tackle test management, to improve their test management? Well, they're investing in automation and they're investing in analytics. They are finding not just automated tests, but ways to automate that non-value add work, ways to automate the collaboration between the different teams, ways to get their requirements from one application into another so that testers can have a better view into the requirements that they're testing. Ways to get the results, feedback loops, ways to get the failed tests back into the backlog so they can be fixed as defects.
A large percentage of what we see winning companies doing are just what you said. Because one of the things that and I think most of the deployments of ConnectALL you've done through the years are actually to solve this problem. And that is your acceptance tests are written in Jira. But the testers and the people doing testing and quality ensuring, they're all living in those other, I want to say, cornucopia of different tools where they're actually doing that. And so there's a lot of non-value added work making all that communicate, people copying tickets and so on. And but then people logging into different systems and trying to make all this, flow together in the right way. And a lot of our companies come to ConnectALL, especially around this market segment, just to manage that, a fully integrated connection between your requirements tools and your testing solutions, right? Tosca is one of the ones that we work with quite a bit. And, people have things in, Rally, and they put their acceptance criteria in there, but then that needs to flow into Tosca so they can use Q-testers, other tools. So I think what we're seeing, and I know you're on the front lines of this daily here at ConnectALL, is a lot of the winning companies are allowing that information to flow, not just the tests, but actually the requirements, all the things that the user stories, so that they can look at them and do better testing and then flowing past that as well. So I think that's the automation part that you were talking about that we see winning companies. And they're also shifting left and ensuring that good quality acceptance criteria are created before the developer starts by collaborating as well. I know that's some of the stuff I've seen. Do you agree with that?
Right. And actually, that's a great segue. I think you pretty much covered my next slide, Lance.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Because what they do is you can connect everything to improve that throughput. By writing those tests ahead of time, and it kind of you hit it on the head too. Is where these things are being written. One thing that I'll note is that a very common thing is customers using older tools like Micro Focus ALM, for example, and they've got 15 years worth of test cases written there. As I mentioned before, it just mounts even higher and higher as time goes on. And, you don't want to replace all that. Think about how much of an effort it would be to get rid of that, or to migrate that over. And there's, still functionally working great for them too. So what they've done is found ways to connect other systems into that so that they can take advantage of those tests of all those legacy. Maybe legacy is not the right word, but all of that wealth of data that they have in there. All the tests that they already have built out that can be reused again and again and again and again. So that's where we get things like connections between Jira and ALM, and helping improve the flow between those two teams. Requirements coming in and then figuring out which test cases that they already have that can be linked to those requirements, and then sending the results back to Jira, where we can connect newer tools like Tosca that come on the scene into stuff like ALM. There are folks that don't want to get rid of ALM, but want to take advantage of some things in Tosca. And so they connect the two, and they recreate their hierarchies over there and then automate their tests over in Tosca, and then have those results flow back to ALM for their traceability, for their for auditability, really, because they may be using ALM for audit purposes.
That's a big challenge, right? Because you're doing all these things in disparate tools, and the audit comes in, and everybody's running around between the tools to show the auditors, why this was tested, where that came from. And then the winning companies are connecting these things to get traceability that they couldn't get. And then they're removing waste of all that work to try to put that information together.
Yeah, and all these things really, they help these teams communicate, and they also help with that traceability between them as well. Gives them a good path across all the different tools so that they can see from start to finish, everything that when a requirement first came in, how it flowed through, and then all the things that were related to it, any bugs that were discovered, any tests that were run, and then the individual steps too. So really from start to finish, they have the whole picture because of those connections that they can make. I've got an example of that over here within this slide. This would be an activity that we would actually do when a new customer comes to us. Is hey, let's talk about what you're doing. So what can you do if you want to improve your process? The first thing we do is we map out a stream like this. We actually talk about all the different tools that they're using and what they're using those tools for. You can see in this picture, we've got examples all the way from planning to building to testing to running, really the full development and the release process here. And you look at all the stuff that that's over here in the testing box, for example, and the different tools that are being used there and their purpose. Then we would, after we map that out, we would identify any areas of waste. Any place where something's being copied manually from one place to another, or maybe some place where automating the flow of data could speed things up, getting those defects from ALM over into Jira, for example, and automating that process, and so that it doesn't have to be done manually. And really kind of getting everybody on the same page, really. And like I said before, getting that traceability from end to end there.
So this is kind of like laying out your value stream. We're a value stream management company. So I just say it once during this webinar. But if you look at this as laying out your value stream, but what I was thinking about is that within each one of those sections of your software delivery, one of the things we do is help organizations understand process. So even though you have plan, build, test, run, and you're showing those things, it's great upfront of your value stream. But in an analysis, from a process perspective, you want to go drill into that particular area. And you can use this SciPoc, which is a really nice little tool that I talk about a lot. It's a way of laying something out to understand process, method, and flow. And then you can look for that area of waste. Now, this is a nice diagram. What tool did you use to draw that?
I used our valuestreammanagement.com, Lance.
So yeah, you used our value stream mapping tool. It's a free online complimentary tool where you can log in and drag and drop and set up your value streams.
So really, where can you get started with this? I mentioned before that would really be the first step is mapping out that value stream, mapping out the different tools that you have. But then whenever you're ready to actually get started and do something with it, let's see here. I've got a couple of examples of how that would actually look within ConnectALL itself. So right here within a ConnectALL dashboard, you can see that I have many different tools that are connected. And we would have things flowing back and forth between these different applications. And this is not quite as in-depth as the picture that I showed a minute ago, but you can see here we've got requirements flowing from Jira over into ALM so that the testers can be better informed about the requirements they're testing against. And then we have some of the test cases flowing from ALM over to Tosca so that they can perform the automation that they want to do over in Tosca and have the results come back to ALM. Our automated scans are in there too. Our unit tests are in there too. And then those vulnerabilities and then those bugs that are uncovered through those tests are automatically flowing back into the backlogs as well. So that's really helping with that's helping us close the feedback loops. That automation happens and it lands right there in the backlog rather than having to go and collect those results from those other tools. So one less step, which ultimately saves time and it makes the process more efficient.
So what this is our ConnectALL automation platform, value stream automation platform, right? And what Jonathan is showing is the ability to set up, these are actually orchestrated things that happen where the test cases flow and are replicated for collaboration between the different tools. This is actually one of the teams that, it's a team-based value stream. So you can use this to organize around teams in your value stream. But he's kind of showing it all laid out. Now, even in here, he doesn't have in this diagram the ability to put in gates where things are flowing in specific ways based upon different business conditions. So if this requirement is from this part, it'll go to this person's testing tool, right? So maybe it's maybe somebody's using Cucumber and it's got to go there, or Tosca, depending on what it is. It's really the ability to be able to take the automation platform, remove the waste of copying things and orchestrating things all right within this one platform. We call ConnectALL, of course, but it's the value. It's the value that we want to talk about more of being able to do that. And that is the outcome of that. You're going to deliver higher quality software, faster time to market, be more efficient in that. And then also be able to harvest information, segue for you, across your whole value stream that is not particularly resting in one tool. So or one solution, you're able to aggregate that together to get quality metrics with our insights product to determine these things.
Right. And
was that a good segue?
Great. I was gonna say, imagine if you had one common dashboard for all of your testing.
Oh, that's a much better one. Much better. Yes. Imagine. Yes, much better.
So where you could have this dashboard here within ConnectALL Insights contains information from ALM. It contains information from Cobaton doing mobile testing. It contains information from SonarQube doing automated code scans. And you could split this up. You can slice it and dice it however you like with the different projects, different applications. But you can really centralize it all here within one place and look at different periods of time and see how your testing improves, and look for other ways that kind of you're establishing a baseline here, and then you can go from there and make improvements to your process and measure over time how effective those changes were.
Well, even team-based metrics, right? So you can look at what teams have a higher defect density ratio, try to understand that, use that to do continuous improvement. And just any of those types of like there's escape defects. What are those defects mostly in, this part of what we're doing? And you can use that to be more efficient in putting out more quality, because you have this visibility like you never had before. And I know you don't have this one screen, but a hierarchical representation of this as well, where you can actually see from your initiatives all the way down to the tests that have passed, failed. You can see what's slowing down your initiatives you have, or the different things you're trying to move forward as well with this analytics, because all those tools are feeding you data that lets you make keen business decisions on. Unlike you've had before, because today, the winning companies we've seen, they have somebody actually harvesting all this information, trying to put it in a spreadsheet.
Or Word doc, even worse.
Yeah. So it's really fascinating.
Right. That's exactly right. Is I've had, prospects come and say, we're doing requirements indoors and software development in Jira and then testing over in ALM. And somebody takes 2 weeks of time going into each of those different applications every quarter and
Right.
gathering all that stuff together. That's a lot of time just for that repetitive activity that they're doing, when instead we could just harvest it all into one centralized place here.
Well, even the ability that somebody is also in that scenario from the automation perspective, moving things around. I mean, years ago, I sold a company that did requirements management, and it created what they called an MRD or PRD. And somebody had to take that PRD, then break that down into Jira, put all the tickets in, then break that down into. So now we're streamlining that whole process by automating that. And it's a huge savings and breaks down silos between just tests and so on. And just orchestrating the whole test process is what we see a lot of winning companies doing. And even allowing non-things to stop process. So, ConnectALL, we're about improving flow, providing business decisions, and delivering value. And it's interesting, when I talk about improving flow, having gauge to restrict flow is an improvement in the flow. So it's interesting when you think about that. So that's our logic adapters we have now, that conditional stuff, right? If these test scans don't happen, it doesn't move forward, and that information reports back to our analytics, and you can look at what scans aren't passing. And so there's so much that you can really understand of how using ConnectALL you can improve your value stream. But to kind of leave the thought of not trying to make this a ConnectALL commercial, there are other things that can allow you to do that. But by connecting your tools and understanding how that part of your value stream works, which is tests and so on, you get really great results. Even just a part of mapping it, understanding how all those things flow, will help you immensely to articulate how to improve it. That improvement might not be a solution like ConnectALL. It might be, why are we doing this process? Why have this big review meeting at the end of it? Let's just let defects go right back into a backlog and be more iterative. What does that do for so? And it's looking at this one thing I read. What was the book I read? It's called Why. The Power of Why. And when you go asking why about things, you start to see areas where things have grown up over time. And you can realize that if I remove that, I'm going to be more efficient. And actually, I just had that epiphany today of why. And it had to do with our install, right? So it's an interesting perspective when you ask, well, we used to do that because of this. Well, that's not true anymore. Well, let's talk about that process and remove it. That's called removing waste and continual improvement. But anyway, back to you, Jonathan. I'm just supporting our position and your position that you've laid out.
Well, no, now I understand why you ask why. And I'm like, wait, why are you asking why? Well,
well, it has to do with the raincoat thing. And I'm not going to describe that. That's what it's all about.
But yeah, thanks. And so that's really, that's why the valuestreammanagement.com is free, right? Is because, like I'd like to say, is just going in and understanding what you're doing and putting it out on paper and seeing it there. If we come back over here, I'll jump back over to that slide with that. Just being able to see what you have, right? And to see your process, and that kind of makes it real, right? When you think about it, you might take things for granted. And like you said, we've always done it that way. But when you start actually thinking through each piece and laying down each piece and asking yourself why you're doing each piece, that right there opens the door for process improvement and ways to remove waste or way to change things that may no longer be needed. So that's why that's free and why easy to go in and map out that process. So with cool. That, I think that's about it. Jump over here to our end. That's basically it for, I wanted to kind of walk through and talk about, again, how it's everywhere, and how testing is everywhere. There's so many testing tools. There's so much that goes into it, whether it's from requirements needing to be shared, or tests needing to be shared, or closing feedback loops, and it all delays the development process, which in turn becomes expensive. And then what you can do to start to tackle that, what winning companies are doing, how they're embracing automation and removing some of that waste, and how it's improving their time to value, their time to market with getting things out the door. So with that, I guess we can open it up for any questions that may be there, maybe out.
That's great. Thank you, fellas. So I just was taking some notes as you guys were speaking, and it comes back still to this problem of things being siloed in the software development lifecycle, where you used to have teams that couldn't talk to each other because they were using different tools and they didn't speak the same language, so they were all kind of walled off from each other. This is really a high level kind of a thing that goes to every one of them. It isn't just like, well, now we'll break down this wall between developers and security, let's say, or developer and testers, where this approach brings all of it into one location, one pane of glass, so to speak, where you can see everything that's going on and find where the problems are and fix them. I think that's great. So one of the questions that I had coming off of that was, okay, so you've integrated your tools and what have you. How do you make the decision as to which part of testing to address with the integrations, or does that depend on the kind of application that you're creating? Or, would you start with UI testing, or would you just follow the pyramid? How would people approach that? Am I on mute?
No, I was just thinking through it just for a moment. Really, it's about I usually start with finding the manual pieces, and finding how, not just manual testing, for example, but finding which things to automate. A very popular thing to do is just start by getting defects back into a backlog, getting the failures back into a backlog, and starting with something as simple as that. And then once you go up from there, just starting there at that result level, and then you can start to tackle things further up from that, getting requirements in there, moving more toward the left, like Lance said earlier. We usually see a lot of value in that, and starting there at that bottom level first.
Just amplifying feedback loops, right? Because it's bringing that right back to development. What that does is, just like John's saying, allows you to increase your over ability to correct those fast and then be able to still hit your release dates. And I worked with a company once that actually queued all those up and then sent them. Well, if they're coming back real time, you're going to fix those right then and there as it's getting tested in a circular loop. It's amplifying feedback loops.
Now, I don't know if this is something that you've seen from companies you've been with, but are you seeing resistance in organizations to going to fully automated testing, or is there a lack of trust there? Why aren't more organizations moving to automate tests, in your opinion?
Well, ultimately, as I said earlier, whenever, well, let me think about how to phrase that too.
Was it just about the point you were making of people having these legacy, quote unquote, legacy tools that have all these test scripts and test cases in there and just dealing with that? Right. And there's a lot of knowns there, with all that legacy stuff. And so why run the same test manually over and over and over and over and over again, when eventually you can automate that and make your time to value faster, remove that part of the waste if you can find ways to automate that. With the suite of testing tools out there now, there are no shortage of ways to automate all the different tests that may be needed for something. The trick is just getting the results from that back into the systems for audits, and that might be some of the hesitation. Is now we want to go adopt this tool for automation, but that's yet another thing we've got to do. And that could be part of the hesitation, and by
automatically getting that back over into the results, back into the audit tools, that may help ease some of that trepidation, that hesitation.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right. So one of our attendees has a question asking, and I think you touched on this, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit. So after the tool integration is completed, does the dashboard allow you to look at some of the key metrics to improve the test management processes? So maybe you can elaborate on your earlier discussion of that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so that would be where we can look at things like ConnectALL insights, like I showed earlier, with the pass and fail percentages between different applications, looking at it at a high level, being able to split that up into different applications or different teams. So yeah, that's absolutely something that would be beneficial to improving processes, deciding whether or not things need to be automated or whatnot.
It's also part of the whole uncovering and understanding bottlenecks
Right.
in your methods and processes, right? So those bottlenecks can be related all the way up to the total bottlenecks of the process. So you can understand which testing facility is slowing you down based upon past failures, how many feedback loops are going back, what are all those different ratios. And with those, you can then do what a value stream management human would do, is go understand. And with understanding, take things like, how to improve, how do I make that better? Is that improvement in engineering? Do I need to train to do better quality code? Do I need to change my standards because maybe they're too high? So with those types of things, you actually see where the bottlenecks are because you're connecting those and creating analytics that let you make business decisions, not just analytics that are there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So listen, I know we've been speaking for a while on the subject of value stream. We've been talking about messaging problems, maybe people having difficulty getting their head around the definitions of value and value stream and management and all of those kinds of things. So the question that I have is, so what would be the best way to communicate the need to integrate your tools, for QA and dev teams if they're hesitant to change the processes that they already have?
Well, first, it's going to first, when you do that, the number one thing people hate doing is run around between different tools and copying things over, right? It's going to allow you to collaborate quicker on those tools as well. And so relating that all the way about value stream management. Value stream management is about improving flow. By connecting these tools, by allowing things to communicate back and forth, you're improving the flow in your systems and between your people. And it makes it much more pleasurable to say, oh, well, let me put a note on this. And then it goes to the developer automatically. I don't have to swing over and copy it over to Jira or do a dump or do all those things. You're collaborating quicker and quicker to real time.
Mm-hmm.
So first, I don't want to be copying acceptance tests from Jira to there. It automatically happens for you. It lets you focus on taking it, digesting it, and creating the test you need. That's how it relates to value stream management, because we're talking about improving the flow between test and development.
Right.
And also capturing data so you can be data driven to making decisions on how to improve your processes.
Right. So just saying that made me think of something. A lot of people are doing today test-driven development. So how would something like that fit into a value stream type of concept? Where you would.
You want to try that, Jonathan, or do you want me to?
Go ahead. I have an idea.
So TDD, TDD is test-driven development, means that you're writing your test cases, your acceptance stuff, all before you even write code. So what it does is, as you're doing that, you're connected with the tools that you're doing this with, and you're allowing the ability to collaborate with the other side of test as well. So it can support that whole methodology and whole concept about shifting left and allowing TDD to occur with, writing your unit tests, all those things up front. But you can also have collaboration happening right away because you've connected the tools. So when you get past that part and you actually have people doing regression tests, you can look at what test was this built for?
Mm-hmm. Good. All right.
It opens the door of collaboration between shifting left.
Mhm. Okay. So it seems that we've gone through all the questions. I would throw it out to you guys if you have any final thoughts or one key takeaway from today's presentation that people should go back to their offices with or their basements like I'm in.
Well, mine is map the process. And in mapping and in seeing, you can make it better.
Good. Jonathan?
Lance told mine.
I hate when that happens.
That's right, man. So I always start at the beginning, right? And you got to know what you got to have, or you got to know what you have before you can make it better, right?
Right. Got it. All right. Well, okay. Lance Knight, President and COO of ConnectALL, and Jonathan McGowan, Principal Solution Architect. Thanks for being with us here today, fellas. An excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
Dave.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I would like to thank all our attendees for spending some time with us today. As always, we're grateful. We know you can learn about this stuff at a lot of different places, but the fact that you chose to be with us, we are very thankful for. Also would like to thank ConnectALL as an organization for sponsoring today's event. So until next time, I'm Dave Rubenstein, Editor-in-Chief of SD Times. So long for now.